and they say, I wonder if the United States can be trusted with our most advanced secrets if they're going to be leaked and put into highly unclassified settings like this. And number three, think about what we are revealing to our opponents. We've allowed them a valued glimpse into the highest levels of our national security team as they make big decisions. Believe me, it's high fives in Moscow and Beijing and Caracas, Venezuela tonight.
Well, what should one do if they're trying to share? I mean, just walk the American public through that process, because undoubtedly there are going to be conversations so-called offline or between a so-called principals group where they're going to want to share information. What is the process for sharing sensitive national security information like this?
The United States appropriately has invested billions and billions of dollars in creating systems that are truly hardened. They can't be penetrated by our enemies. One such mechanism is called the SIPR net, which is effectively highly classified email. It is a common device. There are SIPRnet terminals in every secure facility. Number two, we have invested billions in creating actual classified material spaces, rooms, like the Situation Room in the White House. I had the equivalent of that in my headquarters at U.S. European Command, at U.S. Southern Command. All of our major commands and many more junior commands even have these classified spaces. Every embassy in the United States has one. So there are classified email systems, there are classified spaces to have these conversations, and we even have handheld devices that provide this level of classified protection, SIPRnet, wow, cell phones, if you will. So I just cannot understand why this team would default to using Signal, and in particular sending highly sensitive operational documents. That was the culmination of this. Secretary of Defense Hegseth putting this on Signal. Very shocking.
Sounds like you had to work to fall off this particular ladder in this way. Admiral James Stavridis, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
You know, I'm going to guess there's a refrain ringing in a lot of people's head right now. Butter emails. Some of the same people blasting Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server, they were also on this particular group chat.
Any security professional, military, government, or otherwise, would be fired on the spot for this type of conduct and criminally prosecuted for being so reckless with this kind of information.
We're going to hold people accountable. Nobody is above the law, not even Hillary Clinton, even though she thinks she is.
Mishandling classified information is still a violation of the Espionage Act. It started with Hillary Clinton. It has continued without accountability.
The former Secretary of State's response, quote, "You have got to be kidding me." Let's talk more about the fallout with Adam Kinzinger, a CNN senior political commentator and former Republican congressman, Mark Zaid, a national security attorney, and Eli Stokols, a White House and foreign policy correspondent for Politico. Let me go to you, Congressman, because The Atlantic reports that the defense secretary revealed operational details about targets and weapons and timing. What are the implications of that having happened?
I mean, it's huge. It really is. I mean, first off, I'd like to point out that I didn't have a security clearance anymore, but 3 days ago, Trump took away my non-existent security clearance while this was going on among his cabinet. If I was still in the military and did what they did, I would definitely either be kicked out of the military or potentially even be brought up on charges, because what you have in there is a level of detail, according to the author, that went into the details of what strike packages were, when they were happening, et cetera. And here's another quick point. So I saw Olga Lautman on Twitter she did a timeline and basically came to the conclusion that Steve Witkoff was apparently in Moscow when he was added to this group chat, when he was added to the Signal chat. Now, if that's the case, you have to believe, and we were told this every time we traveled to hostile nations, that they will be monitoring your chats. They'll be monitoring what you do on your phone while you're there. And also, Russia was spying on Ukrainians in their military by exploiting a loophole in Signal. So this very well may not be a victimless crime. It's very possible that Russia had access to this through Steve Witkoff. So this is, it's obviously terrible, and I don't think even enough anger is from what we've seen from this administration.
Mark, I want to hear more about what possible legal consequences there could be for something like this, given even what Tulsi Gabbard, by the way, posted on X. This was just 10 days ago, gentlemen. Any unauthorized release of classified information is a violation of the law and will be treated as such. Could someone be held legally responsible for what happened here?
They could. Would they is another question. But under the Espionage Act, which is in Title 18, Section 793, going back 100 years, there are multiple provisions at which this could apply. In fact, one of them was what so many of these members who are on this text message were shouting for Hillary Clinton to be prosecuted under Section F, which deals with gross negligence. Now, it didn't apply to that situation. I'll point out the one thing where everyone holds Clinton responsible, and 10 years ago when this happened, I was repeatedly saying what a poor choice of judgment it was that she and her senior staff, who should have known better, were using this private server. But people are accusing her of destroying the emails. And yet, in this Signal message, which is not being discussed enough, they had, anyone who uses Signal knows this, you can set when the messages delete. And they had set these messages to self-destruct, like on Mission Impossible for the older people out there back in the 1960s. And that would be a violation beyond the Espionage Act if there's national defense information, which it sounds like there was. It'd be a violation of the Federal Records Act, possibly the Presidential Records Act, that requires preservation of these records.
So would that be considered possibly in an effort to circumvent the federal law, or even if Signal has this mechanism for everything you talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, federal workers can sometimes use their personal devices, but they're supposed to CC their work account so that the records are preserved. And we dealt with that when I did FOIA litigation, Freedom of Information Act litigation, regarding Hillary's emails, actually for the Daily Caller of all places, trying to get at what was the personal communications on personal devices regarding work-related issues. So the hypocrisy of this is just through the roof.
Well, Eli, I mean, are you hearing that there is, publicly there is support for the national security team? Is it true behind the scenes, though?
Well, that's what we're trying to find out. We've talked to a lot of people inside the White House. They have been sort of rocked by this as well. And people inside the White House have been having a lot of private conversations today, and those have centered on the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, the person who added Jeff Goldberg to the Signal chat. Now, has that chatter about him possibly needing to resign, has that reached the senior staff level? Our understanding is that, sources say that, yes, there's been some talk about that, but it's not being seriously considered at that time. He's had, strong statements of support from Speaker Mike Johnson, from other people in MAGA universe, saying that Mike Waltz is doing a great job. They know his job may be on the line here. As Trump watches the coverage, digests this, decides how frustrated he's going to be and who he personally holds responsible.
Senator Kelly, this wasn't a government communication system. No one apparently noticed Jeffrey Goldberg was in the group chat. Secretary Hegseth reportedly wrote at one point, "We're currently clean on OPSEC, operational security." What do you make of this?
Well, it shows just how sloppy all of those individuals on this signal chain were. And I think it's important, Anderson, to note that this was about a operational mission. And it's just incredibly sloppy, but it's also dangerous. If information on a strike against Yemen would leak out ahead of time, let's just say they put somebody else on that chain and the person decided to broadcast it widely at an inopportune time, that could put the pilots that were conducting these strikes at risk. And I think it brings up a larger question about whether are they following the rules that the rest of us live by when we handle classified information. If this incident is any indication, it looks like they do not.
What normally would be the way a group like this might communicate such highly sensitive information?
Well, normally you would go into a SCIF and you would do it face to face. And if you couldn't access a SCIF, there are SCIFs around the country. Let's just say when I'm in Tucson, Arizona, I use the Border Patrol SCIF that is down the street from my house several miles away. If you can't do that, there are secure systems to make a secure phone call within the White House, at the Defense Department, anywhere where these individuals normally would be, including in their own homes. When you're the Secretary of Defense or you're the National Security Advisor or the Secretary of State, they'll often set up a secure facility for you in your house so you can have these kind of conversations. It should not be done on Signal. I don't know anybody on the